I was in the middle of a presentation when my phone buzzed with an unknown local number. Normally I would ignore it, but something made me excuse myself from the conference room. My neighbor Harold was on the line, his voice tense. "Tanya, there was screaming coming from your house last night. Loud arguments. I almost called the police." My stomach dropped. I had been in Chicago for a business trip for 2 whole weeks. Only my parents had spare keys to my house. Who was inside my home? And why were they screaming? The entire flight home from Chicago felt like an eternity. Every possible scenario raced through my mind. A break-in? Squatters? Or something more sinister? I had called my parents immediately after speaking with Harold, but they both denied visiting my house while I was away. Their confusion seemed genuine, which only heightened my anxiety. When my taxi finally pulled up to my modest 2-bedroom house in the suburbs of Atlanta, everything looked normal from the outside. No broken windows. The front door was locked, and my small garden appeared untouched. I hesitated before putting my key in the lock, half expecting to find my home ransacked or strangers inside. To my surprise, everything looked mostly in place. My furniture was arranged as I had left it, though something felt off about the positioning of my living room couch. It was perhaps 2 inches farther from the wall than I remembered. My electronics were all present. Nothing valuable appeared to be missing, but as I moved through the house, small details began to nag at me. There was a lingering scent in the air that I couldn't identify. Not unpleasant, but unfamiliar, like someone had been cooking food I would never prepare. And in the kitchen sink, there were 2 clean plates and a mug in the drying rack. I always emptied the rack before trips. I called a locksmith who arrived within the hour. After examining all the doors and windows, he shook his head. "No signs of forced entry that I can see, ma'am. Locks are intact, windows secure. But I'd recommend changing the locks anyway, if you're concerned someone might have a key." I agreed, and by early evening, I had new locks installed on both the front and back doors. I felt safer, but still unsettled. While cleaning the bathroom later that night, I found a long blonde hair caught in the shower drain. I held it up to the light, a chill running through me. My hair is dark brown and shorter. This was long and blonde. Someone else had used my shower. The following morning, my parents drove over. My dad, Frank, looked worried as he examined the new door locks. "You should have told us you were changing them," he said, handing me back their now useless spare keys. "What if there was an emergency?" "That's the point, Dad. Someone was in my house," Harold heard screaming. My mom, Patricia, placed her hand on my arm. "Honey, are you sure your neighbor heard correctly? Maybe it was the television from next door, or people walking past on the street." Harold said it sounded like arguments, a man and woman shouting at each other. My parents exchanged a glance I couldn't quite interpret. "What about Jake?" my dad suggested. "Did he still have a key from when you were together?" Jake and I had broken up 6 months ago, after 3 years together. The relationship had ended amicably enough, but the thought of him entering my home without permission made my skin crawl. "I asked for his key back when we split," I said, "but I guess he could have made a copy." That afternoon, I called Jake. He sounded surprised to hear from me. "I swear I haven't been to your place, Tanya. Why would I do that?" His voice had a nervous edge that made me suspicious. "I gave you back your key, remember? Did you make a copy first?" "What?" "No, of course not." He paused. "Look, I've been seeing someone new. I wouldn't risk messing that up by breaking into your house. That's just weird." After hanging up, I walked across the street to Harold's house. He was watering plants on his porch, a retired man in his 60s who had lived in the neighborhood for decades. "Tanya, you're back. Did you figure out what was going on?" he asked, putting down his watering can. "Not yet. Can you tell me exactly what you heard?" Harold rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "It was around 11 at night. 2 voices, definitely. A man and a woman. Started as heated conversation, then escalated into shouting. Couldn't make out the words, but they were angry. Went on for maybe 15 minutes. I almost called the cops, but then it stopped suddenly, And you're certain it came from my house? Not the Millers next door? Positive. Your lights were on too. Living room and kitchen. I thanked him and headed back home, even more disturbed. Someone had been in my house, using my lights, arguing loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. Later that evening, while looking for the remote control between my couch cushions, my fingers touched something small and metallic. I pulled it out and held it up to the light. A silver earring with a small blue stone. Not mine. I never wore silver jewelry, and I definitely didn't own this earring. I sat on my couch, the strange earring in my palm, feeling like an intruder in my own home. Someone had been here, arguing, leaving traces behind. But who? And what were they looking for? The following Monday, I took the day off work and went shopping. By afternoon, I had purchased 6 high-definition cameras with night vision capabilities, motion detection, and remote viewing features. My background in IT made the installation straightforward. I placed cameras strategically. One in the living room disguised within a small bookshelf ornament, another in the kitchen hidden in a fake smoke detector, one in the hallway tucked into a picture frame, 2 outside covering both doors, and the last one monitoring my home office where I kept my valuables and important documents. All cameras connected to an app on my phone that would alert me to any movement and allow me to watch live footage or recordings from anywhere. The system had cost nearly $2,000, but my peace of mind was worth every penny. Just as I finished setting up the surveillance system, my phone rang. It was my boss, Carol. Tanya, I need you in Denver next week for the Henderson account presentation. 3 days, starting Monday. My stomach tightened. Carol, I just got back from Chicago. Isn't there someone else who can go? You're the project lead, Tanya. Henderson specifically asked for you. Her tone made it clear this wasn't a request. The company needs this account. Is there a problem I should know about? I considered telling her about the break-in, but decided against it. Office gossip traveled fast, and I didn't want to sound paranoid. No problem. I'll be there, I said finally. That evening, I met my childhood friend Megan for dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant. We'd known each other since elementary school, and she was one of the few people I trusted completely. Or so I thought. Another business trip? You're really climbing that corporate ladder, Megan said, twirling pasta around her fork. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a ponytail, highlighting her sharp features. Not by choice this time. I'd rather stay home after what happened. I explained about Harold's call and the strange discoveries in my house. Megan's eyes widened as I spoke, but something about her reaction seemed off, almost rehearsed. That's terrifying, she said. So when exactly are you leaving for Denver? Monday morning. Back Wednesday night. As soon as the words left my mouth, I regretted being so specific. Something in Megan's expression made me uneasy. Have you talked to Jake about this? She asked suddenly. Maybe he can shed some light. Why would Jake know anything? We broke up months ago. Megan shrugged. I ran into him at Starbucks last week. He was asking about you, whether you were seeing anyone new. This surprised me. What did you tell him? Just that you were focused on work. He seemed relieved. She glanced down at her plate. He mentioned he drives by your place sometimes. Said he misses you. A chill ran through me. Jake driving by my house? That wasn't normal post-breakup behavior. The next day, my parents invited me over for Sunday dinner. Throughout the meal, they seemed unusually interested in my upcoming trip. Do you really need to go? My mom asked, passing me a bowl of mashed potatoes. You could stay with us instead. Just tell your boss you're not feeling well. Mom, I can't lie to get out of work responsibilities. Your mother is right, my dad chimed in. After what happened, maybe you should stay local for a while. Why are you both so worried? Do you know something I don't? I asked pointedly. They exchanged another one of those looks that was becoming all too familiar. Of course not, my mother said quickly. We're just concerned, that's all. When I returned home that night to pack, I noticed several items in my bedroom slightly out of place. A jewelry box was on the left side of my dresser instead of the right. My favorite sweater was hanging in the closet, though I distinctly remembered leaving it folded in a drawer. Small things, easily dismissed as forgetfulness, but I knew better now. Someone had been in my home again, despite the new locks. Monday morning arrived, and I left for the airport with mixed feelings. Part of me was terrified to leave my house unattended, while another part was eager to see if my cameras would catch the intruders. I had created a special alert that would notify me immediately if any movement was detected inside the house. The first day of the conference passed uneventfully. I gave my presentation, networked with clients, and checked my phone obsessively between sessions. No alerts. Maybe whoever had been entering my home knew I was onto them. That night in my hotel room, as I was preparing for bed, my phone buzzed with an alert from my security system. Motion detected in the front entryway. My heart raced as I opened the app and connected to the live feed. The footage showed my father entering through the front door, looking nervously over his shoulder before closing it behind him. He moved through the house with purpose, checking rooms quickly as if searching for something. When he reached my home office, he began opening drawers and rifling through my files. I sat frozen, watching my own father violate my privacy. What was he looking for? And why had he lied about visiting my house while I was away? I was about to call him when a second alert came through. The backdoor camera had been triggered. My mother had arrived, and she wasn't alone. There was a third person with them, but the angle of the camera made it impossible to identify who it was. The betrayal cut deep. My own parents had lied to my face, and now they were sneaking around my home with an unknown accomplice. What possible explanation could there be? I couldn't tear my eyes away from my phone screen as the security footage continued to play. In my home office, my father was methodically going through my desk drawers and filing cabinet. He seemed to be looking for something specific, occasionally holding papers up to the light before replacing them carefully. He was being thorough but tidy, making sure to leave everything as he found it. Meanwhile, my mother and the unidentifiable third person had moved to the living room. They appeared to be having an intense conversation, gesturing animatedly but speaking too quietly for the microphone to pick up clearly. I could only catch fragments. Should have found it by now. And running out of time. And most disturbingly, she can never know. What couldn't I know? What were they hiding from me? With shaking hands, I dialed my parents' home number. My mother answered on the fourth ring, her voice artificially bright. "Tanya, how's Denver? Where are you right now, Mom?" I asked bluntly. "At home, of course. Your father and I just finished dinner. We're watching that crime show we like. Why do you ask?" She was lying directly to me. On my screen, I could see her standing in my living room, her back to the hidden camera. "No reason," I managed. "Just checking in. I'll call tomorrow." I hung up before she could respond, feeling sick to my stomach. In all my 30 years, I had never known my parents to lie to me like this. We had always been close, honest. What could possibly be serious enough to change that? The three figures continued their search of my house for another hour before finally leaving together. They were careful to turn off all lights and lock the door behind them. If not for my cameras, I would never have known they were there. I barely slept that night, and my performance at the conference the next day suffered. During a break between sessions, I researched possible explanations for my parents' behavior. Financial problems? Were they looking for valuables to sell? Identity theft? Maybe they needed my social security number or banking information? Or could it be health-related? A serious diagnosis they weren't ready to share with me? None of these scenarios seemed to fit the secretive, almost panicked behavior I had witnessed. Whatever they were looking for, it was clearly urgent and important. That evening, as I was picking at room service in my hotel, another alert came through. More movement at my house. This time, it was Jake using a key to enter through the front door. A key he had sworn he didn't have. He moved with confidence through my house, directly to the basement door. I rarely used my basement except for storage, and the camera system didn't extend down there. Jake disappeared downstairs for 20 minutes before returning to the main floor. He appeared to be speaking to someone on the phone, nodding occasionally. Just when I thought things couldn't get more bewildering, another figure entered through the front door. Megan, my supposedly loyal friend from childhood, walked into my living room and greeted Jake with a familiarity that suggested they were more than passing acquaintances. They spoke for several minutes, Megan appearing to give Jake instructions, pointing toward different areas of the house. Jake nodded and began moving furniture, checking under cushions and behind picture frames, while Megan watched with her arms crossed. The betrayal was almost too much to bear. My parents, my ex-boyfriend, and now my best friend all conspiring behind my back, invading my home, searching for something I knew nothing about. What connected all these people in my life? What secret were they keeping from me? During the final day of the conference, I could barely focus. My presentation to the Henderson clients was mediocre at best, and Carol shot me concerned glances throughout. Afterward, she pulled me aside. "Is everything okay, Tanya? You seem distracted." "Just tired," I lied. 3 conferences in 1 month is a lot. Carol nodded sympathetically. "Take some time off when we get back. You've earned it." Time off was exactly what I needed. Not just to rest, but to get to the bottom of whatever was happening in my home. On the flight back to Atlanta, I formulated a plan. I would confront my parents directly, demand answers, and if necessary, involve the police. Whatever they were hiding, I deserved to know the truth. But before I could implement this plan, one final alert came through on my phone. This time, the footage showed all 4 of them together. My parents, Jake, and Megan, along with a 5th person I didn't recognize. They were in my living room, having what appeared to be a heated discussion. My mother was crying. My father had his arm around her shoulders. Jake looked angry, pacing back and forth. Megan and the stranger stood slightly apart, consulting what looked like a map or diagram. Suddenly, Jake pointed directly at the hidden camera in the bookshelf. He had spotted it. The footage cut off abruptly as the camera was disconnected. My heart pounded in my chest. They knew I was watching. And now they knew that I knew they had been in my house. Whatever confrontation I had planned would have to happen sooner than expected, and under circumstances I couldn't control. As the plane began its descent into Atlanta, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Your house. Tonight. It's time you knew the truth." The taxi dropped me off at the end of my driveway just after 9 that evening. The lights were on in my living room. They were already inside, waiting for me. Part of me wanted to turn around, check into a hotel, and pretend none of this was happening. But I needed answers more than I needed comfort. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked to my front door. Inside, 5 people sat in my living room. My parents, Jake, Megan, and a man in his 40s I didn't recognize. Their conversation stopped abruptly when I entered. "So," I said, dropping my suitcase by the door, "who wants to explain why you've all been breaking into my house and lying to my face?" My mother started crying again. My father stood, his expression pained. "Tanya, please sit down. This is complicated. I'm not sitting down in my own home that you've been invading. Start talking." Jake stepped forward. "We haven't been breaking in. We had keys." "Keys I never gave you," I shot back. "And what about the screaming my neighbor heard? What about all of you searching my house like you're looking for buried treasure?" "We were trying to protect you," Megan said softly. "Protect me from what?" No one answered immediately. The stranger stood up and extended his hand. "My name is Alan Reeves. I'm a private investigator your parents hired." I ignored his hand. "A private investigator for what?" My father sighed heavily. "We're looking for something that might implicate you. Something from your college days." "Implicate me in what?" "Dad, what are you talking about?" Before he could answer, my doorbell rang. Everyone tensed. I went to answer it, finding Harold on my doorstep. "Sorry to bother you, Tanya, but I saw all the cars outside and wanted to make sure you were okay." "I'm fine, Harold. Just having a family meeting." He looked past me into the house, his expression darkening when he spotted my parents. "I know them," he said. "They were here that night." The night of the screaming. You know my parents? Harold shook his head. Not personally, but I recognized them coming and going from your house while you were away. There were others too. He lowered his voice. Tanya, those weren't arguments I heard. They sounded like pain, like someone was hurt. A chill ran down my spine. I thanked Harold and promised to call if I needed help, then closed the door and returned to the tense group in my living room. Who was hurt in my house? I demanded. No one, my mother said quickly. Harold misunderstood. Then explain. All of you. Now, the private investigator, Alan, spoke up. Your parents contacted me 3 weeks ago when they discovered some concerning search history on your laptop. Searches about evidence disposal, statute of limitations for serious crimes, and how to permanently delete digital records. What? I never searched for any of that, I exclaimed. We believe you, Jake said. That's why we've been searching your house. Someone's been using your computer, your identity. We think they're trying to frame you for something. This was getting more bizarre by the minute. Frame me for what? My parents exchanged a look, and my father finally spoke. Do you remember Natalie Winters? The name stirred something deep in my memory. A flash of blonde hair, laughter, a college party, vaguely. She was a year ahead of me at state, right? Yes, my mother said. She disappeared during your sophomore year. Her case was never solved. And you think I had something to do with it? I was incredulous. Of course not, my father said firmly. But someone wants the police to think you did. I sat down heavily on an armchair, trying to process this information. So instead of coming to me or going to the police, you all decided to break into my house repeatedly and search for. What exactly? Evidence, Alan explained. Planted evidence that could connect you to Natalie's disappearance. Your parents found a blood-stained scarf hidden in your attic last month. Lab tests confirmed it was Natalie's blood type. My head was spinning. That's impossible. I never even knew her well. We had one class together. We know, Megan said. That's why we've been trying to find whatever else might have been planted before going to the police. To protect you. Later that evening, after everyone had left with promises to meet again the next day, I did a deep cleaning of my house, partly to reclaim my space, and partly to see if I could find any other planted evidence myself. In the process of pulling back the living room rug to vacuum underneath, I noticed something disturbing. Small brownish stains on the hardwood floor that looked like dried blood. They had been hidden perfectly under the exact center of the rug. I called Detective Laura Thompson the next morning. She had been skeptical when I first explained the situation over the phone, but became more interested when I mentioned Natalie Winters' name. That case has haunted this department for 10 years, she said as she examined the stains on my floor. No body, no weapon, very few leads. Just a promising young woman who vanished without a trace. And someone's trying to frame me for it, I said. Detective Thompson gave me a measured look. Maybe. Or maybe someone's trying to protect you from something you were involved in. I wasn't involved. I barely knew her. According to the original case files, you and Natalie attended the same party the night she disappeared. This was news to me. I don't remember that. Convenient, she murmured, taking samples of the stains. After the detective left, I installed additional cameras and voice recorders throughout the house. If someone was trying to frame me, I needed to catch them in the act. I also needed to understand what my parents and friends actually knew versus what they were telling me. My next business trip was scheduled for the following week. This time, I decided to try a different approach. I announced my departure date loudly while on the phone with Carol at a local coffee shop where several people could overhear. But instead of actually leaving, I planned to hide in my own home and catch whoever came looking. The day before my supposed departure, I was cleaning out a seldom-used closet when I found something that made my blood run cold. A small notebook I didn't recognize, filled with entries in what appeared to be my handwriting, but containing thoughts and plans I had never had. Detailed descriptions of arguments with Natalie, expressions of jealousy and rage, carefully outlined plans for confrontation. It was a fabricated diary, designed to implicate me in Natalie's disappearance. The handwriting was remarkably similar to mine, but some letters were formed differently upon close inspection. Someone had gone to extreme lengths to create false evidence against me. I was still reeling from this discovery when I heard keys in my front door. I quickly hid in the hall closet, leaving it cracked open enough to see into the living room. My parents entered first, followed by Jake, Megan, and two strangers I had never seen before. "We need to check the basement again," one of the strangers said. "The wall panel in the storage room." My father nodded grimly. "If there's anything else hidden there, we need to find it before the police do." The group moved my furniture aside and headed toward the basement door. I waited until they were downstairs, then crept from my hiding place to follow them. From the top of the stairs, I could hear fragments of their conversation. "Accident. Just trying to protect her. If anyone finds the evidence." What evidence were they talking about? What accident? And most importantly, what did they know that I didn't? I crept down the basement stairs, careful to avoid the third step that always creaked. The voices grew louder as I approached the storage room at the far end of the basement. This room was mainly filled with holiday decorations and old furniture I rarely used. I positioned myself just outside the open door, where I could hear clearly but remain hidden in the shadows. "The panel should be behind that shelving unit," one of the strangers said. "A man in his 50s with salt and pepper hair and glasses. Help me move it." Jake and my father slid the heavy wooden shelving away from the wall, revealing a section of drywall that looked slightly different from the rest. Newer. The older stranger produced a small pry bar and carefully worked around the edges of the panel until it came loose. Behind it was a shallow cavity in the wall. My mother gasped as the man reached inside and pulled out a plastic bag containing newspaper clippings. "They're still here," she whispered. "Thank God." "What about the other items?" Megan asked, peering into the cavity. The second stranger, a woman about my age with short dark hair, reached deeper into the wall space and withdrew two more plastic bags. One contained what looked like a sweater with dark stains. The other held a damaged cell phone. "We need to dispose of these permanently," the woman said. "Somewhere they can never be found." "What about Tanya?" Jake asked. "She knows something's going on now. We can't keep lying to her." My father ran his hands through his thinning hair. "She's not ready for the truth. You saw what happened last time she started to remember." "Remember what?" I racked my brain, trying to make sense of their words. What event was I supposed to have forgotten? "The medication the doctor prescribed should have kept those memories suppressed," my mother said. "I don't understand why she's having breakthroughs now." "Medication? What medication?" I had never taken any psychiatric drugs that I could recall. "Trauma has a way of surfacing despite our best efforts," the female stranger said, "especially when triggered by similar circumstances." My foot slipped slightly, causing a small scraping sound. Everyone in the room froze. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked. I retreated quickly up the stairs and out the back door, circling around to the front of the house. I needed time to process what I'd heard and seen. I walked several blocks to a small park and sat on a bench, my mind racing. They had been hiding evidence in my own basement. Evidence related to Natalie Winter's disappearance. And apparently, I had witnessed something traumatic that I couldn't remember, something they had been helping me suppress with medication I didn't know I was taking. That night, after they had left, I returned to my house and went straight to the basement. The wall panel had been carefully replaced, but I knew where to look now. I pried it open and reached into the cavity. They had taken the plastic bags, but in their haste, they had missed a few items that had fallen deeper into the wall space. I retrieved a stack of yellowed newspaper clippings about Natalie's disappearance. The headlines were chilling. "State University student still missing. After 3 weeks. Police search focuses on Campus Lake. Winter's family offers $50,000 reward for information." Underneath the clippings was a small jewelry box. Inside, I found a necklace with a distinctive pendant. I recognized it immediately from the photos in the newspaper. It had belonged to Natalie Winters. My hands shook as I set these items aside. There was one more thing in the wall cavity. A flash drive. I took it upstairs to my laptop and plugged it in. The drive contained dozens of files, mostly photographs from college parties. I scrolled through them, recognizing younger versions of myself, Jake, and Megan. And there she was. Natalie Winters. Blonde, pretty, always smiling at the camera. In many of the photos, she was standing near me, sometimes with her arm around my shoulders. We looked friendly, close even. But I had no memory of this relationship. How could I have forgotten someone I clearly spent time with? The final folder on the drive was labeled simply, "That Night." My cursor hovered over it for several seconds before I found the courage to click. The folder contained only 3 photos, all dark and blurry. The first showed what appeared to be the interior of a car. The second captured the edge of a lake, moonlight reflecting on the water. The third was the most disturbing. A close-up of a hand, a woman's hand, with a distinctive ring on the middle finger. The hand was splattered with what looked like blood. A wave of nausea hit me, followed by a piercing headache so intense I nearly blacked out. Fragmented images flashed through my mind. A car interior, shouting. The smell of alcohol. Screeching tires. A scream cut short. Dark water. I stumbled to the bathroom and vomited, then collapsed on the cool tile floor. These weren't just random images. They were memories. Memories of that night 10 years ago when Natalie Winters disappeared. That night, I had a dream so vivid it felt like reliving an actual event. I was driving my old Honda on a winding road by the campus lake. Natalie was in the passenger seat. We were arguing about something. A man. Professor Martin from our psychology class. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks. "He'll lose everything if this gets out," she sobbed. "His career, his marriage. He should have thought of that before he started sleeping with students," I replied coldly. Headlights appeared around the curve, blinding me momentarily. I swerved to avoid the oncoming vehicle. The car skidded on the wet road, spinning out of control. My head slammed against the window. When my vision cleared, the passenger seat was empty. The door was open. Natalie was gone. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. The dream felt too real, too detailed to be just a nightmare. Was it possible? Had I been involved in an accident the night Natalie disappeared? Had I somehow forgotten the entire incident? The next morning, I called Detective Thompson and asked her to meet me at a coffee shop downtown. When she arrived, I showed her the newspaper clippings and the necklace. "Where did you get these?" she asked sharply. "Hidden in my basement, behind a wall panel. And you're just finding them now? After 10 years? "I think I've been manipulated," I said. "By my parents, my friends. I think they've been hiding the truth from me." Detective Thompson studied me closely. "The truth about what exactly?" "I think I was with Natalie Winters the night she disappeared. I think we were in an accident by the lake. But I don't remember it clearly." "Convenient amnesia is a common claim, Miss Crawford," she said skeptically. "It's not a claim. I've been having fragments of memories, nightmares, and apparently, I've been medicated to suppress these memories without my knowledge." This caught her attention. "That's a serious accusation. I found evidence that someone's been trying to frame me for Natalie's disappearance. But I'm starting to think it's more complicated than that. I need to know the truth, Detective. Even if it implicates me." She considered this for a long moment. The Winters case has been cold for a decade. The original detective retired years ago. But there was one detail that always bothered him. DNA evidence from the scene. Female DNA that wasn't Natalie's, found on a scarf near the lake. It was never identified. My heart pounded. My DNA? We'd need a sample to confirm. But here's the interesting part. That same DNA was found at another location, Professor Martin's office. Mixed with Natalie's DNA. Professor Martin. The same man from my dream, the one Natalie had been crying about. "Where is Professor Martin now?" I asked. He left the university abruptly about a month after Natalie's disappearance. Moved to Canada, I believe. We questioned him at the time, but he had an alibi for the night in question. His wife confirmed they were at a faculty dinner until midnight. And Natalie disappeared when? Between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., based on witness statements. My dream flashed through my mind again. The argument in the car. Natalie crying about the professor. The accident by the lake. "Detective," I said slowly, "I think I need to tell you everything I can remember. And then I need your help to find out what really happened that night." The next 24 hours were a blur of intense emotions and startling revelations. After my conversation with Detective Thompson, I went home and found myself having a severe anxiety attack. The fragments of memory were becoming more frequent, more vivid, but they remained disconnected, like pieces of a puzzle I couldn't quite assemble. I called Megan and demanded she meet me alone. To my surprise, she agreed readily, suggesting a quiet corner of the public library where we could talk without being overheard. When I arrived, she was already waiting, her expression a mixture of relief and apprehension. "I've been waiting for this day for 10 years, she said as I sat down. Part of me hoped it would never come. Another part knew it had to. "No more lies," I said firmly. "I need to know what happened the night Natalie disappeared. I need to know what role I played." Megan took a deep breath. "We were all at a party at the Delta House. You, me, Jake, Natalie. Do you remember that much?" I shook my head. Only fragments. Natalie had been seeing Professor Martin for months. It was a secret. But she'd told you because you were in his class too, and she needed someone to cover for her sometimes. This aligned with the flashes of memory I'd been experiencing. Natalie confiding in me. My disapproval but agreement to help her. That night, she was upset, Megan continued. She'd just found out Martin's wife was pregnant. She felt betrayed, threatened to expose their relationship. You offered to drive her home since she'd been drinking heavily. And we argued in the car, I said, the memory surfacing more clearly now. Yes, she was ranting about destroying Martin's life. You were trying to calm her down, tell her she'd regret it once she sobered up. Then another car came around the curve too fast. You swerved to avoid it and hit the guardrail. The impact wasn't too bad, but Natalie's door flew open. She wasn't wearing her seatbelt. She fell out, down the embankment toward the lake. My hands began to shake. Did I leave her there? Megan's eyes filled with tears. You climbed down to help her. She was unconscious but breathing. You sent me to get help when I arrived on the scene. But by the time I returned with Jake, something had changed. Natalie was gone. There was blood on the rocks. And you were in shock, barely coherent. What did I tell you? That's just it. You couldn't tell us anything. You kept repeating, he took her. He took her. But you couldn't say who he was. The next day, you had no memory of the accident, or of Natalie at all. The doctor called it traumatic amnesia. And rather than help me remember, you all decided to keep the truth from me? To hide evidence in my house? Megan looked down at her hands. It was your parents' decision. They were afraid of what would happen if you remembered too suddenly. And then there was the DNA evidence at Professor Martin's office. Your DNA, Tanya. Found along with Natalie's blood. The police suspected you were somehow involved. I was in his class. My DNA could have been there for innocent reasons. That's what we all believed. But your parents were terrified. They hired a psychiatrist who suggested that suppressing the memories might be better for your mental health, at least until you were stronger. So you've all been medicating me without my knowledge for 10 years? The betrayal stung anew. Not continuously. Just when you started showing signs of remembering. The nightmares, the anxiety, the questions about college. We thought we were protecting you. From what? The truth? From the trauma. And maybe from yourself. Her words hit me like a physical blow. You think I hurt Natalie? That I'm somehow responsible for her disappearance? No. At least I don't. But your parents were never sure. There were those 3 hours you couldn't account for, between the accident and when you showed up at their house, covered in mud and blood. My parents. I needed to confront them directly. When I arrived at their house an hour later, they were waiting for me in the living room. They looked older than I'd ever seen them, worn down by a decade of secrets. "We know you've been talking to Megan," my father said. "And Detective Thompson. How could you do this to me?" I demanded. "Drug me? Hide evidence? Let me think I was going crazy when I started remembering. We were trying to protect you," my mother cried. "You were so broken that night, Tanya. So traumatized. The psychiatrist said forcing you to remember could cause a psychotic break. So instead you broke my trust. All of you." My father stood up, his expression pained. "You have to understand, Tanya. The evidence looked bad. Your DNA at Martin's office. Your fingerprints on Natalie's necklace, which was found near the lake. The 3 hours you couldn't account for. We were afraid. That I'd killed her? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Your own daughter? Of course not," my mother said quickly. "But we were afraid you might have witnessed something so horrible that your mind shut down to protect you, and that remembering might destroy you. Well, I'm remembering now. And what's destroying me is learning that everyone I trusted has been lying to me for 10 years. I left their house more confused and hurt than ever. The gaps in my memory were maddening. What had happened during those 3 hours? Where had I gone after the accident? And most importantly, what had happened to Natalie? That evening, Harold knocked on my door again. "I saw the police car earlier," he said. "Everything okay?" "Not really, Harold. But thanks for asking." He hesitated, then said, "I've lived in this neighborhood for 35 years. I notice things, like the night you came home all those years ago, covered in mud, and the car that followed you here." This was new information. "What car?" "Dark sedan. Man driving. He parked down the street and watched your house for hours. Same man I saw visiting when you were away on your business trip recently." "Can you describe him?" Harold thought for a moment. "Older guy. Gray hair. Glasses. Respectable looking." The description matched one of the strangers who had been in my basement, the man who knew about the wall panel. I thanked Harold and immediately called Detective Thompson to relay this new information. "I think I know who he is," she said. "The description matches Professor Martin. And get this, he returned to Atlanta 3 weeks ago, supposedly for a conference, but he's still here. The timing matches when my parents started breaking into my house," I said. "Exactly. I think he's back because something's changed. Something that threatens him. Me remembering," I realized. But why would that threaten him? Unless he was involved in what happened to Natalie. "I need to bring him in for questioning," Detective Thompson said. "But I need your help, Tanya. You're the only witness to what happened that night, even if you don't remember all of it yet." The next morning, I sat in Detective Thompson's office as she showed me photographs of Professor Robert Martin, now in his 50s but still recognizable as the younger professor from my college days. Seeing his face triggered another memory flash. Martin arguing with Natalie outside his office. His voice low but intense. "No one will believe you. It will be your word against mine." "I'm starting to remember more," I told the detective. "The accident happened just like Megan said. Natalie fell down the embankment. I climbed down to help her. She was unconscious but breathing. I sent Megan to get help because I couldn't carry Natalie up the steep slope alone. And then, I waited with her. Then I heard a car stop on the road above. I thought it was help arriving, so I called out. A man came down the embankment. It was dark, but I recognized him. It was Professor Martin." "What did he do?" "He seemed shocked to find me there. Asked what had happened. I told him about the accident, that Natalie was hurt but alive. He checked her pulse, then straightened up. He said he'd carry her up to his car, take her to the hospital. I was relieved at first, but something in his expression scared me. He wasn't concerned about Natalie. He seemed calculating. Did he take her? I struggled to access the memory. Yes, he carried her up the slope. I followed. But instead of putting her in the back seat, he opened his trunk. That's when I started screaming at him, trying to stop him. He shoved me hard. I fell and hit my head on the pavement. Everything goes blank after that. You think he put her in his trunk? Alive? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe she was already dead from the fall. The head injury. I can't remember clearly. Detective Thompson leaned forward. Those 3 hours you can't account for. Where do you think you went? Another memory surfaced. The lake. I went back down to the lake, looking for evidence of what happened. I found her necklace, her scarf. Both bloody. I took them. I don't know why. To protect her somehow? To have proof? Then I went to Martin's office on campus. Why there? I think I was looking for evidence of their relationship. Something to connect him to Natalie if he tried to deny knowing her. I found letters in his desk. Love letters from Natalie. And a campus security videotape labeled with the date of a night I knew they'd been together. And you took these items? Yes. Then I went home to my parents. I must have hidden everything in my basement later. Detective Thompson made notes, then looked up at me. This changes everything, Tanya. If Martin was there that night, if he was the last person to see Natalie alive, he killed her, I said with sudden certainty, to silence her. She was threatening to expose their relationship. It would have ruined him. We need proof. And we need to find Martin before he disappears again. Just as she finished speaking, her phone rang. She answered, listened for a moment, then her expression darkened. Security cameras at your house just picked up someone breaking in, she told me. Officers are on their way, but it will take them at least 15 minutes to get there. Who is it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The description matches Martin and Tanya. Reports say he's carrying what looks like a gas can. My heart pounded as Detective Thompson and I raced to my house. She had called for backup and an ambulance as a precaution, but we arrived before any other units. From the street, everything looked normal, but Thompson insisted we wait for backup before approaching. He could be dangerous, especially if he's cornered, she said, checking her service weapon. He's destroying evidence, I argued. Evidence that could prove what happened to Natalie. We can't wait. Just then, my phone buzzed with an alert from my security system. Motion detected in the basement. I opened the app and connected to the live feed. The camera showed Professor Martin in my storage room, pulling away the shelving unit to access the wall panel. He's in the basement, I told Thompson, looking for whatever might be left in that wall cavity. She made a quick decision. We approach quietly. I enter first. You stay behind me at all times. If I tell you to run, you run. Understood? I nodded, and we moved toward my house. The front door was slightly ajar. Thompson pushed it open slowly with her weapon drawn, and we stepped into the silent living room. Nothing appeared disturbed. We moved quietly toward the basement door, which stood open. The smell hit us first. Gasoline. Martin was planning to burn the evidence, possibly the entire house. Thompson motioned for me to stay at the top of the stairs while she descended slowly, her footsteps silent on the carpeted steps. I couldn't just wait there. I had to see, to confront the man who had stolen 10 years of my life through the trauma he'd caused. I followed Thompson down the stairs, staying several steps behind her. In the storage room, Martin was kneeling by the open wall panel, a gas can beside him. He was so focused on retrieving something from deep within the cavity that he didn't hear our approach. Thompson positioned herself in the doorway, weapon aimed at his back. Police! Don't move, Professor Martin. He froze, then slowly turned his head. When he saw me standing behind Thompson, his expression changed from shock to a cold calculation I recognized from my recovered memories. Miss Crawford, he said with eerie calm. I wondered when you'd finally remember. I remember everything, I said, though it wasn't entirely true. I remember you at the lake that night. I remember you putting Natalie in your trunk. I remember trying to stop you." He smiled thinly. "Do you? Or are these memories your subconscious has fabricated to fill the gaps?" Memory is notoriously unreliable after trauma, as any psychologist will tell you. "We found your DNA at the scene, Martin," Thompson said, "mixed with Natalie's blood." "Of course you did. I was her professor. We had meetings in my office regularly. Meetings that went far beyond academic discussions," I said. "She was going to expose your relationship. That's why you killed her." His face hardened. "You have no proof of that. No one does. Natalie's body was never found." "Because you disposed of it?" Thompson replied. "Where did you take her, Professor? The lake? The woods? A shallow grave somewhere no one would look?" A tense silence filled the room. Martin's hand moved slightly toward the gas can. "Don't," Thompson warned. "You'll only make this worse for yourself." "It can't get worse," he said quietly. "My life ended the moment I saw Tanya on that embankment with Natalie. Everything since has been borrowed time." "Tell us what happened to Natalie," I pleaded. "Her family deserves to know the truth." Something in Martin's expression shifted. For a moment, he looked tired, defeated. "She wasn't supposed to be in that car with you," he said. "She was supposed to meet me. We had a plan to talk things through, but she never showed up. When I drove by the lake and saw the accident, saw her lying there." He paused. "I knew it was my opportunity." "Opportunity for what?" Thompson asked. "To end it cleanly. She was threatening to tell everyone about us, to ruin my career, my marriage. My wife was pregnant. I had everything to lose." "So you killed her," I said flatly. He didn't deny it. "You weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to see me. When you tried to stop me, I had no choice but to stop you." "You hit me," I said as the memory clarified. "Hard enough to knock me out. I thought you were unconscious, maybe even dead. I put Natalie in the trunk and left you there. I never expected you to recover and come looking for evidence. But I did. And I found it." "Not all of it," he said with a hint of his former arrogance. "You never found the most damning piece." "What was that?" Thompson asked. "Natalie's phone. She recorded our last conversation, threatened to use it against me. I took it from her that night and kept it all these years as insurance, in case anyone ever came close to the truth." "And now?" Thompson pressed. "Now it doesn't matter anymore." His hand moved again toward the gas can. "Step away from the can, Professor," Thompson ordered. "You're under arrest for the murder of Natalie Winters." For a moment, I thought he might comply. Then, with surprising speed for a man his age, he grabbed the gas can and flung the contents toward us. Thompson fired as gasoline splashed across the room. The bullet hit Martin in the shoulder, spinning him backward. I felt Thompson pushing me toward the stairs. "Run! Get out now." I stumbled up the stairs as Thompson handcuffed the injured professor. The smell of gasoline was overwhelming, but thankfully no fire had ignited. Outside, sirens approached rapidly. Within minutes, the house was swarming with police officers and paramedics. Martin was taken into custody, his shoulder wound treated on scene before he was transported to the hospital under guard. Detective Thompson took my statement, while crime scene technicians began processing the basement. One of the technicians emerged from the house holding a small evidence bag. Inside was a phone, an old model from 10 years ago. "Found this in the wall cavity," he told Thompson. "Battery's dead, but the memory card should still be intact." It was Natalie's phone, the final piece of evidence Martin had tried to destroy. The next few days passed in a blur of police interviews, evidence processing, and emotional conversations with my parents. They were devastated to learn the truth about Martin, and deeply remorseful for the way they had handled the situation. "We thought we were protecting you," my father said, his eyes filled with tears. "We never imagined Martin was responsible. We truly believed you had witnessed something traumatic but weren't directly involved. Why didn't you just tell me what you knew?" I asked. "Why the secrecy? The medications? The psychiatrist said forcing traumatic memories could cause permanent damage," my mother explained. And then when we found evidence in our own basement, we panicked. We thought someone was trying to frame you, but we never connected it to Martin. Jake and Megan also apologized for their roles in the deception. We should have trusted you with the truth, Megan said. Instead, we made everything worse by trying to handle it ourselves. A week later, Detective Thompson called me to the station. The tech team had managed to recover data from Natalie's phone, including an audio recording from the night she disappeared. In it, Martin could be heard clearly threatening Natalie if she exposed their relationship. This recording, combined with your recovered memories and the physical evidence, is enough to charge Martin with first-degree murder, Thompson explained. Even without a body? I asked. Martin confessed this morning, she said. He led us to Natalie's remains in a wooded area 50 miles outside the city. He's hoping for leniency in exchange for his cooperation, but with the evidence we have, he's looking at life without parole. Relief washed over me. After 10 years, Natalie would finally have justice. Her family could properly lay her to rest, and I could begin to heal from the trauma that had shaped a decade of my life without my knowledge. In the months that followed, I underwent proper therapy to process my recovered memories and the betrayal I had experienced from those closest to me. It was a difficult journey, but a necessary one. My parents and I slowly rebuilt our relationship on a foundation of honesty. Jake and I maintained a cautious distance, the trust between us too damaged to fully repair. Megan and I eventually reconciled after many long, painful conversations about loyalty and truth. Harold, my observant neighbor, became an unexpected friend. His attention to detail had provided crucial information that helped solve the case, and his straightforward manner was refreshing after so many years of deception. 1 year after Martin's arrest, I stood with Natalie's family at her proper funeral. Her mother embraced me afterward. "Thank you for not giving up," she whispered. "Even when you didn't know you were looking." Professor Martin was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without possibility of parole. The university established a scholarship in Natalie's name for students focusing on victim advocacy and trauma support. As for me, I found new purpose in helping others who had experienced trauma and memory issues. I completed training as a victim advocate and began working with the local police department, supporting those navigating the aftermath of violent crimes. My house, too long associated with secrets and violations, was sold. I moved to a bright, open apartment downtown with large windows and no basement. My new home had no hidden spaces, no concealed truths, just light and room to grow. The screams my neighbor heard that night weren't from an argument, or even from pain in the traditional sense. They were the sounds of people confronting a terrible truth they weren't ready to face. In trying to protect me, my parents, Jake and Megan, had created a prison of deception that contained us all. The truth, as painful as it was, finally set us free. Have you ever discovered that people were keeping secrets from you for your own good? How did you react? Truth can be painful, but living with lies can be even more damaging in the long run. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might find strength in this journey from deception to truth. Thank you for joining me on this emotional path to justice and healing, and I wish you clarity and honest connections in your own life.